Welcome back. Joining us now to discuss this week's sports headlines is Timothy Weisberg. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Chris. We have known for a week who would be extending their season in the East. It's simply coming down to seeding. The question remains, can anyone beat the Heat? The battle for the 8th seed is also in full motion between the Los Angeles Lakers and the Utah Jazz in the Western Conference. Not like it's a big issue since neither will have any shot of upsetting the Oklahoma City Thunder, but what will matter is if the Lakers can hold on to their one-game lead over the Jazz with 3 games remaining. Since trading for Dwight Howard this summer and signing 2-time MVP Steve Nash, the Lakers were the perennial favorites to contend for an NBA title. Missing the playoffs would make them one of the most overhyped teams in history. Who would have thought in April that they would be fighting for a playoff spot? It's April, folks, which means the Super Bowl of golf is back, the Masters. In Augusta, Georgia, the fight for the coveted green jacket began Wednesday with England's David Lynn as the leader after opening with a 4-under. And Tiger Woods was also off to a strong start, but struggled on the back 9. A couple bogeys later made him have a 70, and he is 4 shots back and currently tied for 13th. Sergio Garcia is also up high at scoring a negative -6. And what we can expect from Tiger Woods as well as Rory McIlroy, who won the Masters previously last year, is really a fight to really hit those par 4s and par 5s that have been notoriously difficult. And really, the great shot was the hole-in-one on the number 6 hole. Who would have ever thought that you get a hole-in-one at the Masters? It's a golfer's dream, and even to get it in the course of your lifetime is a pretty incredible feat. I know whenever I'm on the golf course, my skill level, I have a better shot of winning the lottery. But consider a quadruple bogey on my part on a par 4 a success. Yeah, this is what I love about the Masters. Golf is kind of like the Super Bowl commercials for me. You only watch the commercials during the Super Bowl, and like golf, I'm only excited about it in April. The fallout of Rutgers cannot be any more evident with a report released today by the Star-Ledger in Newark. According to confidential minutes obtained and first reported by the Star-Ledger, Tim Pernetti was praised by top campus officials, including trustees and board members, for his handling of former Rutgers basketball coach Mike Rice. It was at a December 14th meeting held by the Athletics Committee and some of the university's Board of Governors where officials decided that Rice should only be suspended. Rice was initially fined $50,000 and suspended for 3 games without pay before being fired last Wednesday in light of the media getting a hold of video of Rice shoving and spouting homophobic slurs at his players during practices. Rutgers President Robert L. Barshi, who has also come under fire for commending Pernetti and the athletic department for disciplining Rice what he said appropriately, according to the minutes. The Star-Ledger also reported that no one brought up whether Rice should be fired or asked to even view the video of the coach's abuse. Basically, this is a cover-up, and President Barshi is just as guilty and should be fired. I don't know what it is recently in the trend of the culture of athletics that makes officials and administrators feel obligated to protect what they consider more of like a secret brotherhood. And no matter how egregious the behavior, it has gone on for too long, and the lack of accountability and really inherently the power that coaches have at these major Division I schools seems to be the biggest culprit. To take the basketball analogy, there's certain areas that are out of bounds. Not only did Rice cross it, he was halfway up the stands. And these are young men that we're talking about. But since when does throwing basketballs and shouting homophobic slurs motivate the players? If I'm a player, I want my coach to attack me as a player, attack me for my play on the court, but to not berate me as a person. He should have been fired immediately. And this, in the same situation, would a professor hurling textbooks at students falling asleep in class be the same slap on the wrist and just a suspension? Forget tenure, because that's a whole other issue. The sad reality is that money and politics and sports dictate how things are handled. There's more of an emphasis on preventing any negative publicity over protecting students that are physically and verbally abused. Sound familiar? And that's really the biggest tragedy of all. This power of money and coaches at these research institutions. Just 1 week before the video was exposed in December, Rutgers was already in the process of talking with the Big Ten officials and joining the Big Ten Conference, which would have been a major revenue stream. We all know that the Big East has having a huge falling out. We have the Catholic conferences trying to form their own realignment, and this game of musical chairs was really catching up to the Big East. You had Pittsburgh and Syracuse leaving for the ACC, and with Rutgers being invited to the Big Ten, which is a powerful conference with their own television network, own revenue stream coming in, it would have been great for a Rutgers athletics program that has struggled financially and really heavily relied on student fees to be a form of revenue for the program. And like the Big Ten could offer not just an opportunity to play regularly on television, but with this negative publicity, they could have, fired Rice and essentially not be invited to the conference. And this is really an epidemic of mass proportions of what little form of transparency exists in collegiate athletics. This had always been dissipated during the Penn State scandal, the most egregious cover-up we have ever seen. And speaking of Penn State, Joe Paterno's widow said Wednesday that she and her husband were naive about sexual predators. And the Free Report clearly said otherwise. She might have been ignorant, naive, whatever you may call it, but nobody in that athletic department was naive. They knew everything about what Sandusky was doing and yet refused to do anything about it for over a decade. The most secretive of all secret brotherhoods. Paterno led the Nittany Lions for 46 years. He was pretty much a divine-like figure within the state college community, but like Pernetti, Barshi, and any other top official at Rutgers who knew of Rice's abuse, Paterno should have been held responsible for failing to report the child's sexual abuse. All of them, former university president Graham Spanier, former athletic director Tim Curley, and retired vice president for business and finance Gary Schultz. NFL safety rules against helmet-to-helmet contact remain ever controversial in an already violent game. Rugby goers say that the NFL can learn something from the safety standard of rugby. Jessica Pitcher reports. Jessica, thanks for that report. That's all for sports. Back to you, Chris, Alea.